I'm Idiotech, and today I'm going to take a look at Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. Now, initially I planned to do a review for this game, but after playing it for about an hour and a half, I kind of get a good idea of what the game's about and what it offers in terms of features. And it's not something I really feel like continuing playing for the 10 to 20 hours required for me to unlock all the features in the game to give a full appraisal of everything the game has to offer. And the reason for that is because I ultimately found the game to be incredibly grindy. Now, before I get into that, I'll quickly show you the menus. So the menus overall are not particularly flashy, they don't look amazing, it's just grey and black. But they do offer some cool features. So in the video options, we have texture size, which is standard, screen resolutions, which seem okay. I have no idea if this supports 4K resolution or not. I don't have a monitor to test that, so you're going to have to go to the forums to find an answer to that question. VSync, full screen on or off, there's no borderless window here. Anti-aliasing goes up to 8 times. I assume this is MSAA. SSAO, depth of field, motion blur, floor reflections. And for the most part, this game looks really, really good. The really cool feature in this menu here, though, is that it tells you your FPS. Now, yeah, sure, you can get this using Fraps or some other tool, but I just like the fact that they've included it here for people to be able to tweak their settings to get something that runs stably for them. So that's really cool. Other than that, we have the options menu for audio. So nothing much here, just 2 sliders. And then game settings, mouse smoothing, blah, blah, blah. Nothing that exciting here, although they do support different keyboard types, which is really, really cool. So that's really it for the menu. So I'll just jump into the game where I left it off and we'll start talking about some things. Now, the loading screens in this are actually quite long. They do take a few seconds. But thankfully you don't have to experience too many of them, so that's fine. It's usually just when you're loading into the game and when you switch between jobs. So it'll take a few seconds to load up here, hopefully not too long. And there we go. So first off, we'll just talk about visuals. Now, honestly, the game looks really nice. There's nice effects, depth of field, some cool sort of global illumination type visuals, like lighting, sorry. And overall, it looks quite nice, to be honest. I mean, sure, they're not rendering much here. It's just a garage and a car. But when you consider how much detail these cars are actually modeled in, it's kind of cool. So for the most part, yeah, the visuals are actually quite impressive. And they look really nice, especially these floor reflections. They're really kind of cool. And the game runs perfectly at 60 on my rig. If you want to know what my settings are, just check the About page of my YouTube channel. So visually, it's really, really nice. The issue I have is with gameplay. So basically, when you start the game, they give you some tutorials, and to be honest, those tutorials were not great. They kind of rely on you just interacting with objects, and then they tell you what they are as you interact with them. So I just walked over here, and I saw the toolbox was interactable. So I clicked on it, and the first time I used it, it explained to me how it worked. And for a while, I kind of didn't know what I was doing. I didn't play the 2014 variant of this game, so it did take me, maybe 10 minutes to sort of really work out what I was doing in terms of the actual car and how to use all these controls on the side here, like toggle body mode and conditions mode and all that. And navigation was a little bit of a pain as well initially, but I got used to it after a few minutes. So overall, the tutorials could be a lot better than they are, but they're not the worst tutorials either. So this is really the crux of the game here, and that's the phone. So you click the phone and it brings up a list of jobs that you can take. Now, each job will tell you what's wrong with the car currently and provide you with a list of components that are broken or that need repairing, for example. Now, I imagine that later in the game they're going to stop providing you with those lists and you're going to have to determine this for yourself using tools, etc. So that may make it more enjoyable, but as it stands right now, and I've done 3 jobs, and you may think that's not very many, but it actually took quite a while. As it stands right now, they just tell you what the parts are that are broken, and you can see them in the sort of special explode sort of view. So there's not a huge amount of challenge in the sense of determining the parts that need to be fixed. Now, I'm assuming that will come in later, but honestly, I don't think that will save the game. So you pick a job. They don't tell you how much money you're going to earn for the job. So you can't really optimize your decision-making process here in order to make the most money possible. They don't really tell you how complicated the job is until you see the actual lists that they provide. And there are certain jobs I just can't do because I don't have enough experience, which is up here in the top right-hand corner. So there's only really 2 jobs I can take here, and the one that's currently sitting on the floor. So they don't even tell me how much experience I'm going to earn. So I really, really like it if they would actually tell you how much money you're likely to make and how much experience you will earn from each job so you can try and be more optimal. But there are some other issues here that I'll come back to later. So essentially you pick a job and then it will spawn a car here for you. And then you can open up the order information and then click on the problems and it will say, okay, the front drive shaft needs replacing, the front shock absorber needs replacing, etc, etc. And this seems to be pretty much all you do. So you turn off the body there and then you can see here and then you can enter a sort of diagnostic mode. And you can see here that that part there is red, which means it's damaged. The yellow parts are sort of in reasonable condition and green parts are healthy. And so if we walk around the car, we can see there's some issues here and here. And all of these issues, it looks like, are going to require me to take the wheels off the car, right? So in order to do that, I hit M and stick it on a lift, okay? So I'll press this, and it will raise the car for me. Now, all of this looks really great, and I love the attention to detail, don't get me wrong, especially in the car models themselves. So, basically what we do here is we enter the diagnostic mode, go, okay, well, we need to replace that part there. So, we'll click on the wheel, and then we're in various modes here, you can see on the left. Disassemble mode, assemble mode, examine mode. And then we can also open our inventory, see what we have in there, and we can open the repair order to see what it is exactly we need to repair. So I click on the wheel here in disassemble mode, I right click and hold it, and then it allows me to remove the various bolts and screws holding the wheel in place. And all I'm doing here is just holding left mouse button down and it unscrews. So I need to access this part here, and you can see that it's rusty and broken. And so if I hover over this part, you can see that parts next to it highlight in red, and that indicates that they need to be removed first before I can remove the part I want to remove. So if I move up here, you'll see this part's green. So I remove this part, and then I can't remove that part yet, so I have to remove this part, and then remove the screws and bolts for that. And now I can remove the part. Okay, so it's a front shock absorber. So I remove this, and there we go. And now it's in my inventory. Now, I'm just going to back out of this because I need to replace it. And currently I can't repair things because I need ridiculous amounts of XP to be able to unlock that, which I'll explain in a little bit as well. So I go over to the computer here, and I click on the car part shop, and I search for, I think it was a shock absorber, so I'll just type for shock. It was a front shock absorber. Yeah, so I'll buy that. Done. And that just comes out of my balance, which currently is about $2,500. So I go back over to the car. I click back in here so I can get access to this, and I enter assembly mode by hitting 2. And you can see this sort of ghosting of the part where it should be that allows you to sort of remember how to put the car back together. Because if once you get into more complex jobs, it can get pretty ridiculous how much you have to take off the car to be able to actually just change a part. So it's nice that that's there, because otherwise you would not be able to reconstruct the car. So I just hold down the right mouse button, and then I pick from the various parts of my inventory. Now, some of you may know all this if you played the previous game, but I'm just explaining it for those that don't. So that's it, and I've replaced the part. So now I just reassemble the car, put all the parts back on, pick the ones out of my inventory, put the screws and bolts back on, and this is quite a short operation. Some of them take a lot longer than this. And then I put the wheels back on, and screw those in place. Okay, so that's that. Now, if I back out of this, and we go to this menu now, you'll see that I fixed one of the issues with this car. Okay, now that is really all it is. You go through and you pull bits off and replace the bit that's faulty, and then you put the bits back on. Now that would be fine if there was something else to do. There was more of a metagame or a progression element to the game. Now, you'll see I have experience in the top right hand corner there. So that's experience I've earned from 3 jobs. I started with 0 experience, so that's 3 jobs. Now, if we go over to the tool set here, and we click on this, on the toolbox, you'll see I can unlock some sort of perks, so to speak. So, fast unbolting. Unbolting does take quite a long time, so you unlock this, or fast assembly and disassembly. So all of these are quality of life improvements. So essentially, the game is grindy. It takes a very long time to do anything, and so you unlock these, and it speeds it up. Okay, so these are not fun. Okay, these are just making the game not horrible, not unenjoyable. When you put mechanics like this in a game, it's just kind of like, well, we made the game boring and slow, and then you can make it not boring and slow. So I don't really see these as enjoyable things to upgrade, and considering how much experience it costs 1,000 experience for 1 point to be able to upgrade these, right? So that's, I've done 3 jobs, so that's like 6 jobs, right? 6 cars, and they can take anywhere between, you know, 5 and 20 minutes at this point to get those done. And that's just for 1 upgrade, which really is just like making bolts faster so I can go do more jobs, so I can then make repair tools more reliable, so I can go do more jobs. And the jobs themselves are just, you know, take parts off a car, put parts back on. Now, it's cool in a sense because I don't know very much about cars. And so it's nice to sort of be able to see where things actually are, you know, like where the exhaust manifold is, for example. I learnt that today. So that's cool. And for people who are car enthusiasts or people who are interested in being a car mechanic or, you know, into it as a hobby, this might be really, really fun for them. But for me, as someone who's not a car enthusiast, this just isn't particularly exciting. So you can unlock these things here, and these scanners, I don't know what these do. I assume they're part of diagnostics, etc., etc. And then over here you have a repair table, which currently I can't use. And I imagine that's because I have to use the toolbox to get level 1 in repairs. So I assume what that will allow me to do is to take parts off the car that are sort of semi-broken and then bring them back up to a reasonable standard of quality without having to go to the store and buy them and spend my money. But you see, the issue here is I don't really see what the point of money is, because all I do with it is buy these parts. Now, if you come over here, you can see there's an auction center and a garage, okay? And there's also a test track, and I'll show you that in a minute. But there's an auction center and a garage. So from what I can gather, and this, don't take this as gospel or anything, but from what I can gather is you can actually buy cars. And in the main menu, there's actually a way to go and look at all the cars in the game. And so you can buy cars, and then you can upgrade them or paint them or, you know, change them in some way in your garage. And that's a really, really cool feature. I actually like that. I think if the game was more centered around that, more so than running a business, it would maybe be a little bit more interesting. But in order to do that, I have to buy parking. So in order to buy, even go to the auction center and consider buying a car, I have to have 9,000 XP. Which, when you consider that it took me 3 jobs to earn 500 XP, that seems quite a lot. And then when you consider that in order to like unlock any of these, I need 1,000 XP per upgrade, that's quite a lot. And then when you consider that there are other things to unlock over here, such as this, a path test, which is, I assume, some kind of facility for testing the functions of a car. But that's another 3,000 experience. And then over here, the paint shop, 6,000 experience. And then to be able to even accept some of these jobs, I need even more experience, you know? I need 3,500 experience just to take that job. So it quickly gets a bit out of control, to be honest. And I would have much preferred this if either the pacing was set differently, you know, this was maybe not 3,000, but maybe 500, or you were able to do it with money. Because currently money seems to only exist to purchase parts and possibly to buy cars at auction later, which you can then do up as sort of a hobbyist type mentality. And that's it. That's the function of money in this game. And XP is just a barrier to being able to do things. You know, it's a barrier to be able to do things in a reasonable amount of time. It's a barrier to be able to repair things without them breaking, you know, to increase the chance of success. You know, it unlocks these tools which maybe increase the speed at which you can detect issues. I'm not sure. I haven't tried them yet. You know, this will allow me to do more complex jobs, I assume. This will allow me to paint cars, which I'm assuming will give me access to more jobs. But ultimately, it's the same thing over and over and over again. Take the car apart, put the new part in, put the car back together, time and time again. And it becomes old really quickly. Now, if I was being rewarded with cool upgrades, interesting new features, you know, then fine. It would be more interesting, you know? And the other really, really lacking aspect of this game so far, and it may be somewhere later in the game that they haven't shown me yet, or something along those lines, but so far there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of business management involved. And that's really the part that I thought I would get into with this. I thought, you know, there'll be the sort of simulator, take a car apart, and that might be interesting. But the business management aspect of games like this is what really sort of intrigues me and pulls me in. And this game just doesn't seem to have any of that. They don't tell me how much money I'm going to earn for these jobs. They give me no sense of what the rewards are. And not just that, but I'm just offered 4 jobs. It's like, great, I can't do 2 of them, so if I decline them, because I can't do them, in a second the phone will ring and give me another job, and I probably can't do that one either. And there you go. I can't do this one either. So that's literally it. Now, if they'd gone, okay, you know, maybe there was a timer or something, so it was like someone needs this job doing quickly and they'll pay really well for it, so you only have this amount of time to get the job done, you know, and provided that these lists go away and you have to actually diagnose these problems yourself, that could provide a real challenge, like a really enjoyable challenge, and they may do that, but it's not something I've experienced so far. And that would provide a really fun challenge, you know, having to quickly diagnose a car, but to be able to be rewarded with large amounts of money for that. And then, for example, being able to barter with customers. So if you earn reputation, for example, and become a really, really respected mechanic, maybe you could like charge people more money for your services, for example, or barter with them in some way. You know, and in terms of the parts market, it's not particularly exciting. There's no mechanics here. You just buy things and sell things. You know, I can go to my inventory and I can just click these and sell them. So I assume, you know, I can get these parts off old cars and maybe repair them, but that costs me stuff, and then sell them, you know, and make some money. But again, what's the point of money? So I can buy a car and put it in a garage and maybe change the paint color, or, you know, change some of the bodywork, etc. It really seems to lack a lot of depth in terms of progression mechanics, in terms of business management. What its strong point is this car stuff, you know, these really, really detailed models with every little part and nut and bolt of a car. That's awesome. But if you combine that with a really, really solid business management game, it could be really enjoyable. As it stands, I'm not seeing much in terms of the business management. I'm not seeing any way to optimize my cash flow. My cash flow doesn't really have any impact on the game. Most, well, if not all of the features I can see here are all unlockable via XP and not money, which doesn't make much sense to me, because, I mean, buying a scanner would make more sense, right? You spend money on it. Buying getting, you know, a refit of your garage and getting a new area that you can do paint jobs in, etc., etc. All of that, to me, makes sense to have that sort of tied into an economy like money, which you can earn from jobs. Whereas experience is just this arbitrary number that you just have to eventually get and then spend it on upgrades and new areas. So, yeah, that's sort of a real letdown for me, because I was really expecting some sort of, you know, deep business management simulator, and what I'm getting is a deep car mechanic simulator, but not a deep business management simulator. So, overall, unless you're really, really into cars and you think you're going to find taking a car apart, putting it back together 100 times, you know, maybe to unlock all of this stuff available to you, if you think that you'll find that enjoyable, then go ahead and pick up the game. But for anyone else, anyone who's looking for more of a business management type simulation game, you know, with maybe some cool car stuff in it, there's not much here. Now, just before I end this video, I will quickly show you the test track. I'm not sure if I can do it while the car's on the lift. Yeah, I can. Car's incomplete. Oh, right, okay. So I can't. Basically, I'll just describe it to you. It's a loop around a factory. You go outside in a factory, you drive with mouse and keyboard, and you run through a series of tests, like a suspension test, an acceleration test, a braking test, and that's it. And then you bring it back inside, and it gives you a report. So I assume, again, that's for later diagnostics when they're not providing you with lists and information on what's wrong with the car. You go do a quick test drive, it gives you a report, gives you some idea of where to start looking. You maybe use these scanner tools, etc. But that's it, you know? And for me, that's not enough. I want a deep management simulation to go with the mechanic simulation, you know? And it just doesn't seem to be offering it at that point. And what it is offering is very grindy, very drawn out. And honestly, after a while, it gets really, really boring. So that's my conclusion on the game. You'll know if this is the kind of thing you want to pick up. And if you're like me and you're looking for the things I've described, maybe give it a miss or wait for a sale and pick it up a lot cheaper and just give it a go then. Alright guys, that's my first impression / attempted review of Car Mechanic Simulator 2015. If you liked it, you know, leave a comment, click the like button, subscribe, etc., etc. Thanks a lot guys, take it easy.